Welcome back to the Orange Peel Podcast. If you're new here, I'm your host, Nikki, and this is a space where literally I'm just documenting my journey, learning about Bitcoin, money, tech, and how all of this actually impacts Gen Z. So today I'm very excited because I'm sitting down with Lorenzo Hall, also known online as Renzo Invest. If you've seen his content on Instagram, he talks a lot about investing, real estate, Bitcoin, and, just building financial literacy in a way that actually makes sense for our generation. So I really did want to bring him on because a lot of us are trying to figure out money, while we're still in school or still very early in our careers and honestly just confused overall. So this conversation is going to be very real, very unfiltered. Renzo, thank you so much for coming on and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on, Nikki. Yes, my name is Lorenzo, stay within the state of Arizona, and I'm on here to talk about my story. So,
All right, let's get right into it then. So, before we talk about, Bitcoin and investing, I want to get to know you. I want, people, my audience to understand who you are first. So, I mean, how did all of this start for you? Like what actually got you into content creation and interested in money in the first place?
so it was like a while back. My mom, she had me read a book. I'm not sure what the book was about or the name of, or the title of the book, but she had me read a book. Long story short, I have the Robinhood app on my phone since like 2021. 2023 comes about, I turned 18, and like the first thing I did was I set up my Robinhood account. And at the time, I was into like stocks and ETFs, so I started buying stocks and ETFs and whatnot. And then, funny enough, I actually bought Bitcoin back in 2023. I obviously didn't know what it was, sold in June. And then, kind of ever since then, I've just been interested in money. I ran down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. And then, earlier this year, back in March, I recently got my real estate license. So I am a realtor slash like a property manager in the state of Arizona. And kind of like my background outside of work, I liked at the gym and like listen to podcasts, and that's about it. Really, pretty simple and casual.
Sweet. Yeah. It sounds like a pretty cool journey you've got there. Also was introduced to money and investing and, Bitcoin subsequently by my parents. So it's always cool to see that there are other people out there that kind of had the same starting point as me. Was this something that you were kind of always interested in? Like, did you always know that you wanted to start making content and talking about money on the internet, or did that just kind of come later for you?
So that just started this year. I really couldn't tell you why I started. I just started. The one thing that was holding me back was like, what should my name be? Should I make another account? This, that, and the third. And then just one day I got in my dad's backyard, or I was at the park at in my mom's neighborhood and whatnot. And I just started making videos, and it's a really cool thing because like people around me are like, hey man, I watch your videos. They're pretty cool, keep doing what you're doing. And so it's like, should I stop or should I keep going? And like we have people motivating you and pushing you. It's very very encouraging to say the least.
But that is really, really cool. It's really important that we have people online talking about money. And I think the way that you break it down is it's really well with people in our generation because it's very, simple. It's very like no jargon and just easy to understand. So I feel like everyone online, they do talk about money differently, but I'm curious as to how you actually think about, investing. So, how would you describe your overall investing philosophy if you have one?
I would just say it's something that I don't want to work till I'm 65. Like that's not it, to say the least. So like what can I do now to prevent that from happening? So, right, you want to live long and you want to have like enough money so you can live longer. So health and like investing are the two things I like to talk about. So investing wise, I say the younger you start, the better it's off, because when you're younger, you have a lot of time. So time is your advantage. And then when it comes to health, working out, eating properly, recovery and things of that nature. So like mainly time. My investing strategy right now it's like dividends and like regular stocks, but since I've gotten into Bitcoin, I'm kind of like I don't really know if I'm really into stocks and ETFs anymore. I'm kind of the guy that's like all for risk. So I'm all, all kind of in on Bitcoin to say the least. But yeah, that's what I would say, like investing strategies.
How did you get into Bitcoin?
So it was last November during election season. I saw that the stock market was up and it was up for like 3 days straight. And I look over and I see like this Bitcoin thing. I'm like, what is this? I'm like, let me just buy some. So I bought some, and then I listened to Earn Your Leisure. I listened to Market Mondays with Troy, Ian, and Rashawn, and they had this guy on. His name was Chris Johnson. I listened to that episode. I was pretty sold. And then at the time, that was back in like December. And at that time, Chris and his buddy OJ, they started bit by bit. And I listened to a few of their podcasts. It was going well. And I'm the type of guy I like to like when I'm interested in something, I'll pursue it. And so they weren't making enough videos for me particularly. And I ended up going over to Bitcoin for Millennials by Brahm. And then ever since then I've just been down the rabbit hole, learning this, that. And I mean from Brahm, I listen to like Anthony Papolino sometimes, and Jack Mallers is someone that I've recently started listening to. And I definitely like listening to Jack. One thing led to another, and here we are, just learning more knowledge and whatnot. So
Yeah, it really is crazy. Like the longer you stay in, the deeper you realize that the
yeah,
gold mine goes,
yes, for
just in
sure.
terms of knowledge. So it just,
Yeah.
it keeps going and going and going. I feel like I've only been in this space for maybe coming up on a year, but properly for
Mhm.
6 months. That's how long I've been thinking about the podcast and doing the podcast. So it's just every day it's like, okay, there's like another thing that I don't know. And it's like when you think you know 15% of it, like in reality, you probably know about five. So, it's pretty it's a great space to be in, I think, especially for someone our age. Do you mind me asking, how old are you?
So I'm only 20.
Oh, okay. So we're the same age, yeah.
Yeah. So I like so one way I like to look at Bitcoin is I like to compare it to real estate. So like back in like the 70s, like the 80s, real estate was like, let's say it was around 30 to $40,000 for a home. And nowadays real estate is around like 400,000, 500,000, depending on where you live at. And so I think personally in like the near future, Bitcoin can definitely be something that real estate is now, to where maybe 30, 40 years from now, it could be 300,000 a coin, 500,000 a coin, that type of thing. So that's another reason why I'm like pretty interested and would definitely like to, keep buying into this thing, because you never know. But yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you mentioned that and that you talk about, real estate and Bitcoin on your Instagram account because Bitcoiners usually see this as or these fields as something that's completely mutually exclusive, right? You're not going to meet many Bitcoiners who are bullish on real estate. So, I mean, let's just start with how did you get into real estate in the first place?
So my mom, she's a realtor herself. And I don't know, I was like, let's try this real estate thing. I didn't know what I was getting myself into at the time. It took me a while to get my license. I would say that much. It's not an easy test, but I got into real estate, and I went to an event with my mom, and I ran into this guy, and he has a property management company, and this was about a year ago, and we started connecting from like March until like September of last year, and just tagged along with him as property management. I didn't have my license at the time last year. So when I first started, I was doing like the basic day-to-day stuff. Lo and behold, March comes along. I finally passed my test. It was brutal. It was brutal. So for anyone that's doing or going through a real estate test, good luck. But yeah, it was a brutal one. And then from March until now, I've been more into property management, and then I've also helped my mom with a few real estate deals. So I guess you could say it's hard for my mom, and I was like, why not? Let's have at it. So, and I think it fits perfectly for me because you could have you can have a niche within like real estate, stocks, and within Bitcoin. So it's definitely something I like to entertain for a few years, and then from there, we'll see where I go in the future. I would definitely say like I would say my mom had a big impact on me in real estate.
My mom's actually a realtor as well. So
Okay, that's
yeah,
what's up. Yeah.
she
Okay.
does it. She does a little bit here in Seattle, but now she's kind of expanded into doing some like overseas like property management and things like that.
Yep.
But that's a topic for another time. So, being a realtor working in property management, are there any lessons or philosophies that for like transfer from real estate investing to Bitcoin? Because I'm really curious, how you compare the two in your head.
You can definitely make money within real estate. I like to look at it as there's like there has to be a ranking one, two, and three. And real estate is something that you can make money in. But you mentioned previously in one of your videos, you were basically saying how like the boomers, they own like all the real estate, all the bonds, all the stocks, and all those things and whatnot. So for some that's our age, it's it's pricey, it's like it's pricey. And I just think that like if people we can come together and put money in together as like a collective group and buy and purchase real estate, that'll definitely be like our advantage. But yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
So, in terms of investments, then, is there a reason why you would suggest someone, in their early 20s, someone our age, they put their money into real estate opposed to Bitcoin, or would you still say Bitcoin first?
I honestly think it's up to the person. I'm more of like you give them knowledge and then you just let them decide. It's funny because I was at a friend's house and I was just like simply giving an example. Me personally, I feel like if let's just say you're a guy, you're a young guy, you're like 22, 23, you don't really have much going on for you. Like you're single, you don't have like any major bills, and you want to make money. Me personally, granted, I don't have a house or anything, so I'm kind of, not really speaking from experience, but from like numbers, I personally would not go the real estate route. I would ease more into like stocks, ETFs, and Bitcoin. The main reason is because of time, energy, and effort. It's like it can be a lot it's a lot of mental work and capacity to try to deal with people, and then it's like you have to deal with tenants, you have to deal with the contractor and all these other people. And I would always say it's up to the person, but definitely just give them the info and the knowledge, and then just let them decide for themselves. And if they're like, what would you recommend, then that's when I feel like you would give your input. So but yeah.
It's really, really interesting that you say that, because I know a lot of people now who have sort of started making their own money and started, wondering where they should be investing it and where they should, honestly be putting it in. And I really do think it comes down to the way that you view homes and real estate in general, right? There's a difference between viewing it as a store of value versus viewing it for what it is, and that is a roof over your head. So, one thing that, I've had quite a few people on this channel, and we've spoken a bit about real estate. I think I had an episode with Finn Crichton where he went on a whole kind of like it was like a 40-50 minute long
Yes.
like rant about why you should not buy a house.
Yep. Yep.
So Bitcoiners, they tend to be very convicted in their belief that a home should
Yep.
not be a store of value, right? And if you look at what people like Jeff Booth say, they say, Bitcoin is a store of value. If you look at home prices in Bitcoin, it's been completely deflationary. So where I'm going with this is, if you were talking to someone who, is kind of maybe like one of your clients or one of your friends who was curious, like, where would you go about explaining this difference between how you view housing and real estate and how that would translate to whether investing in real estate or investing in Bitcoin is a better option for you?
So I would first just tell them like what money is. I would tell them how the Federal Reserve just prints money endlessly. I would try to give some references from the creature of Jekyll Island and whatnot. And then I would just ask them what their goals are. Like if you plan on having a family in the like next year or two, then you should probably buy a house for the family in the future. But if you're just, you're single, you want to make money, and you plan on doing that, maybe you should, look into other options. So, and then it's always up to the person and their risk profile. So if someone's like very, very conservative, then they might just go with the real estate route. Where someone is very, very risky, they might go with, stocks, ETFs, gold, whatever fits their needs. So it's always, I think it's always up to the person. Knowledge and education is key when it comes to, teaching or helping people out. It's funny because you mentioned the episode with Finn. That was the very first time I saw you and I was like, let me click on this episode and very, very interesting. And then you and Jeff Booth. So he says how deflation is the natural state of the free market, and I've been like, contemplating on what that means. I'm say this, I'm not for inflation, but I think inflation is like a good thing. Okay. I may be regretting this in like a few years from now, but as of right now, I think inflation is a good thing. There's like price inflation and then there's monetary inflation. I'm in a group chat and whatnot. So I asked a few people within the group chat. They simply said that monetary inflation is the main reason why there's price inflation. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. But it's also like the iPhone 17 should cost more than the iPhone 15 because like, new technology, better design, things of that nature. But then there's some people that are like, well, it's kind of some people just think differently about it. So it's definitely inflation and like, deflation of a natural state and what Jeff Booth says is definitely something I still have to wrap my head around. Yeah.
If I could just, like jump in here for a sec. It's interesting that you bring up that example with the iPhones because when you go into study economics, so I've taken a few economics courses in my
Hmm.
time at college, and one of the first things you learn is the difference between labor and capital and how that would impact the price of the good that's being supplied. So you would think that, as the capital is essentially like getting better, we need less of it, right? And because of that, you would see falls in the prices of these technologies, and that intuitively makes a lot of sense. And one place that you do see this is TVs. I think TVs are one of the only things that are actually actively deflationary at the moment. So I'm not gonna take this time to try and orange pill you and convince you on why deflation is good, but I do urge you to maybe take
That
a
is
second
true.
look at that.
I that is true. I just
Have you
realized
read
that.
The Price of Tomorrow yet? Then that would be your first step. I think until I read that book, I didn't really understand deflation either. But then,
Hmm.
you go in to read it, then you go in to watch the podcasts and the episodes and all of the things that Jeff Booth has done around that book and some of his
Hmm.
other works. And you start to really understand why it's the natural state of the world and really, get into, why we have this K-shaped economy and what's going on at the moment. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too deep into that and
That
start.
that actually does make a lot of sense because TVs like are very like inexpensive now. So that is a good point. I never even thought of that. So definitely gotta be like looking for TVs that were made back in like 2015 versus TVs that are made in like 2025. So I'll because he because the podcast with Jeff Booth, he was talking about like calculators, and it makes sense, but like the calculator on your phone versus like a calculator you get in the store can be like completely different. So it was still, like I'm still trying to wrap my head around, but the TV play was a good one. That's something to think about for sure.
I do think the calculator example is a good example for sure, but I do think it's a
Yeah.
little bit outdated, which is why
Okay.
like, I think for our generation, TVs makes a little bit more sense because
Mhm.
we're able to, go back and see what they were like in 2015 and then 10 years later now, obviously like cheaper by a mile. Coming back to the point, let's start, talking Bitcoin and let's start talking Gen Z and why you're in it so young because obviously you're familiar with the channel and the whole premise is why Bitcoin is a kind of lifeboat for Gen Z
Yes,
in
it
a
is.
world where we have a sinking currency and just money all together to use some buzzwords here. So what made you take Bitcoin seriously instead of, brushing it off like I think a lot of people tend to do at first?
Number go up. Simply stated, I just saw the number go up. I'm up $100 in fiat terms, which at that time I thought was a good thing. And then as you do the knowledge, as you learn, it's technically a bad thing when the price goes up. And when the Bitcoin price in dollars goes up because you buy less sats, knowledge number go up. And then, obviously over time, um, I kept buying, I kept buying, I kept buying. And then I finally found my community of people. So I ran into you first, and then I followed you and Finn. And then just recently, I followed Nolan and Tossin, which you had him on the podcast, and there's some great guys, and I think just like having a community of people around you that are in the same age as you and that people that look like you is very very confidence, and like it builds helps build confidence as well as maintain your conviction in the space, because I'll say this much: when you talk to someone that doesn't like understand or know what it is, it can be very easy for them to spook you out of your position in a sense. So I think you should also, have like a community of people. So like now, personally, my conviction and confidence level within Bitcoin is very, like it's through the roof now, but it's not because I learned more, it's because I just have people around me that, talked about it. So but yeah, that's how I look at that part. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean that's really great to hear, and I'm glad that I was able to help you with a little bit of that. So, I mean, thank you. That seriously, it's really good to know that the channel is doing something
Of
to
course.
help
Yeah.
other people that are my age in this space.
Hmm.
Because you're right. I talked to some of my friends who are not Bitcoiners, and they aren't even like they haven't even taken the first step yet. So I try to talk to them. I try to talk about inflation and why we have a broken money. Try and talk about Federal Reserve and the gold standard and things like this. But it really, really does make a difference when you have people that are already of the same mindset and are able to have those conversations amongst each other. And I think this is something that, older, more seasoned Bitcoiners are better at than us because they've been around for longer and they have their own networks and everything. But, that's part of the reason why I like doing these and especially giving platforms to people like you who are, actively in Gen Z and actively doing the proof of work, and we just get to have a conversation and then just get to build a bit of a community. So that part's really really great, and I do love doing this. Coming back to the point, then you said that number go up was something that made you take Bitcoin seriously, but I think that one problem we see in our generation is people tend to focus a little bit too much on the price and not enough on the why Bitcoin exists or the ethos behind it. So I'm just curious, like what do you think about that? Is that something that you tend to notice when you talk to people about Bitcoin or when you look on online?
So first things first, I don't know about you, but in my case, I feel like I get dismissed, which is very like it's not sad, but when people don't understand what you're talking about, it's kind of expected. People tend to, we want to fit into the crowd, and I feel like I just at a certain point in time, I just have to accept I'm just the odd guy out. I talk about this internet coin that's in cyberspace. No one can see it, it's not physical. But I would feel like can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and I was just wondering if you thought that people focused too much on price, especially like our age. They're way too much number go up, number go down, and they don't focus enough on why Bitcoin exists or the whole ethos behind why it was created.
So I think the price definitely scares people. It's priced at that price for a certain reason. People believe in it because of the proof of work and the fact that it's a scarce supply. Nothing else is scarce. But um, the main reason why right now it's around 88,000. So the main reason of why it's at around 88,000 is because it's scarce and that there's people that actually believe in it. One of the things that I like within Bitcoin outside of the monetary aspect is proof of work. I look at it as essentially if you say you're gonna do something, you should do it. So like if me and my friend are at the park and he's like, "Hey, I can do 20 push-ups," I'm be like, "Do 20 push-ups. Let's see if you can do them for real." And then that also kind of works its way into don't trust, verify. I feel like if we just operated by like those two standards within the world, it'll be a lot different place, because then it'd be it's like showing a receipt, because you have to have a receipt or like like a receipt for most things you do in life. So it's like proof of work and don't trust, verify. It's two things that take very seriously within the space. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, no, I do think that the sentiment does completely change when you start to look at Bitcoin's ethos and start to examine why it was actually created, and why the white paper exists. What was Satoshi actually thinking when they went around, doing this whole thing? And one thing that I've noticed when I, try and talk to people my age, just like in person or having these conversations through like people that DM me and things is they'll always come in with number go up. They'll always be like, Bitcoin is obviously had a crash in November and now it's like kind of recovering, but then it's obviously it's very volatile. So they'll come in and be like, what just happened? Why did it dip to let's say 88,000? And then they'll be like, I don't know, I might want to like pull out my money. And then it's like, okay, that's fine, but if you're still in this mindset, probably Bitcoin isn't for you because you need to do the work to understand the ethos behind it. You need to do the work to understand why it's actually there. So, one thing that I try to do is when anyone comes to me and they're like, I want to get started with Bitcoin, I'm always just like, okay, study it. Okay, learn
yes,
it. Start with What's
yeah,
the Problem by Joe Bryan. Read a couple books, read the Bitcoin Standard, The Price of Tomorrow. Understand these things and then try to look at the number. Or honestly, like it's even better if you never look at the number. And I
yep,
think that that's
that
a
is true.
narrative that we definitely need more of on the internet and especially amongst our generation. So, yeah, I mean, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that because it's a very nuanced topic and I do think that number go up is definitely a good thing in terms of attracting people. So, I think to
Yeah,
get more people interested in Bitcoin, it does make sense because, not a lot of people are going to care that it's a solution to broken money or that it combats inflation or that it's, you've got the blockchain and hashing and everything like that. Like, not many people are going to care about that, but it's easy to get people when you tell them, like, hey, number go up, this thing will make you rich. So it's a double edged sword, but
yeah.
yeah.
So the funny thing is, like one thing that I've like recently realized is that the number going up is not a good thing. Like you shouldn't want the price of Bitcoin to keep going up. You want it to come down. But like when you tell someone that that's not within the space, they look at you crazy. It's like it's like you don't want gold to go up. You want gold to go down so you can buy more gold. And I think that's just a one-on-one basic investing principle is you want your asset to come down and stay down so you can buy it up. And then when when it goes up, you'll be more profitable and you'll have more money in your pocket, so to speak. So, but it's always why this, why that. It's never, what is Bitcoin? Why do you buy this? Is there a problem within the with our monetary system within the world and within the US? It's just like simple, basic questions that like I honestly feel there's an education gap or education barrier. But the thing is, we have ChatGPT, we have Grok, we have Gemini, we have Claude. Like there's all these AI resources, and like no one wants to use them. But we have time to scroll TikTok and Instagram and doom scroll for 3 hours a day. So it's like people just it's okay. It's okay to be entertained, but there's a degree where it's like, all right, you don't need to be entertained for 7 hours a day. Read up on something, whatever it is you like to do, just read up on it and just learn information about that particular thing. But it'll take a while for sure.
Yeah, I do agree. I do agree with that. But I also think that, we have an education gap in the sense that we don't have a lot of people igniting curiosity about Bitcoin or, the surrounding aspects in our generation itself. It's easy for us to scroll on TikTok, but when we're scrolling, we also don't hear much about Bitcoin at all. If we were to hear something about Bitcoin, maybe some of those people would head over to ChatGPT and try to figure out what this thing is. So, I mean, that's why content like yours is very important because you do make short form content. You do put it on Instagram, and it's very helpful, and it's something that you're doing. You're again putting in the proof of work to bridge that education gap, which is really really cool. So, just to shift gears a little bit here and talk about Gen Z once again. A lot of people listening right now are probably in college or just starting out in the workforce. So I do want to take this ethos that we've discussed about Bitcoin and make it really practical. So, if you were someone with very, very little money, where would you even start with learning Bitcoin or real estate?
So for Bitcoin, I would download an app. My mom, she sent me an app. It's called Meetup. And within the app, you can meet people that is interested in the same things that you're interested in. So within like this last month, I've been able to attend 3 Bitcoin meetups. It's like people are just find source. So if you're on a budget, find something that's within your range, download an app or two, figure out how you can connect with people within your area, and then just gain knowledge and talk about what you're interested in to them. And that's the best way. And then there's always ChatGPT and Grok. I'm a huge fan of AI personally, so I'm always gonna recommend someone to use Grok or AI. But definitely, um, I would definitely say like download an app like Meetup or something, and you meet people. I met a guy he runs a Bitcoin mining company here in the state of Arizona, and I'm like, what what in the world? That's like unheard of to me. So you'll meet all types of people. I would say in my particular situation, majority of the people, or usually when I ever go to like big events or whatnot, I'm always the youngest person there, which it's a good thing, but it's kind of it's a little nervous. So these last few meetups I've been to, I was the youngest person there, and it's very cool to be around people that have been in the space since like 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, because they get to give you information. They're like the people that are like really, really into the game, and like nothing can probably shake them out of what they're doing, what they're putting their time into. So I definitely say, get out and just meet people that are interested in what you're interested in. So,
Yeah, that's really, really great advice, actually. Like, I don't think anyone has said that on the channel yet. So I'm really, really glad to hear that because I am struggling with kind of the same thing. I think on campus, I find it really hard to meet people that are already Bitcoiners or already kind of knowledgeable on this topic. Obviously, I meet people that are curious and I have people
mhm.
that DM me and stuff that are like, "Hey, I want to get started." But, sometimes again, you want to have those conversations. Sometimes you want to be the one to learn and not the one to teach.
Yes.
So that's definitely good advice. And I should get on Meetup. I really should get on Meetup and
Yeah.
start looking if there's some in my area. Yeah. So another thing I wanted to ask you was, what's one habit that you think matters more when it comes to investing than how much money you have?
It's dollar cost average. It's as simple as that. A dollar a day keeps the pain away. So as long as you stay consistently investing, that should be your only habit. You only lose money and you only make money if you sell. So if you don't sell, you won't make money, you won't lose money, and just dollar cost average. I really think it's that simple. But it's like people are so when you don't do the knowledge and we don't educate yourself, like you don't know what to do. So like you're stuck between should I do this, should I do that, should I do that, or should I do that? But when you're educated and you do the knowledge and you know what you're talking about, it's very simple. Dollar cost average. That's like the only habit you need to have. Like I said, a dollar a day keeps the pain away. Just
That's a
just
really
do
good
that.
quote.
Just do that. You'll be fine. But yeah, I would definitely say that's like number one habit I would suggest for sure.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, apart from, the fact that you're still putting in money every day, and obviously that's going to add up to something, power of compounding, right? But it builds consistency. And I think
Yes,
consistency and holding
it's everything.
conviction is the most important thing when it comes to Bitcoin. You can't start with Bitcoin if you aren't going to adopt a low time preference, if you aren't going to adopt a long-term mindset. So before we kind of wrap things up here, I do want to give you the floor completely and just kind of let you speak about any messages that you had that you wanted to give to young people to hear about money, or maybe older Bitcoiners that you think they might want to understand when it comes to helping young people get into Bitcoin, or just anything that you want to say. I mean, this is your time to take the platform.
So I would just like to say that the Federal Reserve prints money out of thin air. Okay. So it literally comes from nothing. Okay. They have a sibling called the IRS. Okay. Take They take that thing that they made out of thin air, and if you don't pay them back, they'll charge you more for it. That's the first thing I like to say. The second thing is you have to buy income producing assets or something that's valuable, whether it's real estate, stocks, ETFs, gold, silver, Bitcoin, whatever it is, you have to buy something that's valuable. Powell just cut rates like last week. The money printer is going off. So like you have to buy something. And then the last thing I would say is education. If you don't even have an interest in money, but like let's say you have an interest in working out, just educate yourself, working on working out, the gym, what you should be eating, what you shouldn't be eating, your recovery, and then don't take life too seriously. At the end of the day, you're just there's no there's no book, on how life works. I would say systems, I've learned this over like a few months. Systems are a lot more important than goals. And I think that if you could have like an outline of what you want out of life, you'll be all right. So I'll give you an example. Uh, I want to pay off like some debt I have on my credit cards. So the first way I'm gonna go about it is I'm not gonna buy any shoes or any new clothes all of 2026. And hopefully I can do that. Hopefully I don't get spooked out of that. But have an outline, set some goals, be accountable, and just enjoy life. Take care of those that are around you because you never know when they'll be gone. That's about it, really. That's all I got, really.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, great advice. I wish you luck with your 2026 goal. I also have a spending addiction that I'm going to be working on for the next year
Yep,
and trying to
it's a
put
real thing.
that money into the Bitcoin instead and start like stacking some sats.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, just to kind of, reiterate what you were saying, I really think Bitcoin does a great job at teaching you accountability and teaching you how to have determination and have, hold your belief and stand firm in what you believe in. Because I think after studying Bitcoin, I've really started to kind of think things in terms of Bitcoin. So it's like, okay, if I want to go buy something, I'll be like, okay, I could spend the $50 to buy these shoes or to buy this dress,
Yeah.
or I could go into Bitcoin
Yep.
instead. And
Yep.
it really does help you kind of weed out the things that you need versus you want. And that's something that young people really, really need to learn, especially when we don't have money or building our careers or studying. So, yeah, I mean, core ethos, study
Yeah.
Bitcoin. If you're watching this and you're our age, study Bitcoin and join the community. Start talking to people who are, our age because there are more of us out there. And I think this conversation is really something that helped me understand that. So, Renzo, thank you so much for coming on. I honestly like it.
So can I say one more thing? So I recently kind of like got sponsored or whatnot by Bitcoin is dope, and I got an affiliate link last night, and I'm excited. So if anyone is interested, oh snap, feel free. Bitcoin is dope merch. Use code Renzo Invest all caps to get you 15% off, and cop some merch, support the boy, and yeah. So I just wanted to say that happened last night. I'm pretty excited about that. So
Yeah, I mean, awesome. Bitcoin is dope
yeah,
has some great stuff. I've got
yes.
like a few of their hoodies as well, and I didn't pack them for my trip. I'm traveling at the moment, but love them. Renzo, where can people find you, if they want to reach out, get in touch, or see your content?
Okay, so Instagram, RenzoInvest.az, Renzo Invest, invest.az. And then I'm on and off TikTok, RenzoInvest.az as well. And yeah, feel free to like, comment, and share the content. And any questions, um, money related, I'm always willing to help educate somebody because no one wants to talk about money, it seems like, which is really weird to me. But I'm always here to help educate people.
And you know what? It's good on you. It's good on you for doing the proof of work.
Yes,
So
yes,
again, thank you so much for coming on. This was
of
a
course.
really, really great conversation, and I enjoyed getting to know you and speaking with you. So if you guys like this episode, make sure you check out Renzo's stuff. I will link his social media in the description and also provide the link and the code to Bitcoin is dope that he mentioned. So yeah, I mean, as always, this podcast, it's not about being perfect or knowing everything. And I think that was very evident in today's conversation. It's learning in public, right? It's learning out loud and asking better questions and talking to each other. So with that, stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay orange pilled. I'm your host, Nikki, and I'm going to see you guys in the next episode.